How's it going, YouTube? And welcome back to First Timers. Today we're going to be working on Project Attack, and we're very excited to let you know that we're going to be changing out the factory springs on this car. Now keep in mind it is on a magnetic ride style strut, so that was a little bit of a scare, and that was the first time I ever worked on one. But I kind of want to show you guys how easy it is. Now keep in mind the rear was a little more difficult, but the fronts were actually pretty simple. Now I am using a 24mm socket and adjustable wrench to loosen up the strut bolts. Very easy to do. I also did have to use an 18mm open end ratcheting wrench and a 8mm socket to remove the remove the sway bar link, which was actually pretty simple. Now don't forget, you're going to have a wheel speed sensor wire and a 10mm brake line that's attached to the strut as well, so you're going to have to remove those. Now on the lower control arm, you do have these little steel rods that are connected to it. They're kind of like little push-on connectors, so just make sure you push those off as well. Those are for the magnetic ride. Now for the very top portion, once you get to that part, you're going to have to open up your hood, and there's going to be a 24mm strut bolt at the shock tower mount, or the strut tower mount, and I used the impact on that to remove it. And once I did that, the spring, the whole piece just came down, and I just pulled the spring out, and it was very easy. Now once you get to looking at the springs, make sure before you actually install them, so you're not scratching them up and you can return them, that they actually semi-matched. That's a big thing for me. I always tell people, just double check. Obviously they're not going to be the same height because these springs are ½ inch lower, and I think the fronts are ½ inch and the rears are 3/4 inch. So you're going to notice that obviously there's going to be a few more coils, but just make sure everything kind of matches. Now once you slide in your new spring, you're just going to make sure that it falls right into that rubber perch pad, and make sure that it's in its same location. And once it's in the same location, all you have to do is get it lined up with the hole. Now I did have to use the jack that's actually under the car to actually line it up, so I put some jack stand, it already had jack stands, but I put the jack stands in right locations to actually hold it up, and it was actually very easy to do. But just keep in mind, once you have the jack underneath the shock mount, or the strut I should say, once you're lining it up, use a couple pieces of wood just so it doesn't damage the bottom of the unit, and then angle it towards the front of the car. So the bottom of the shock, or the strut, needs to go forward, so it needs to be about a couple degrees forward. It's not crazy, but you can kind of notice that it's not a straight up and down style strut. Now once you kind of get everything on, it was very easy to kind of tighten everything up and keep everything connected. Now the rears, I did use some wheel ramps to get it up in the air, and then I rolled under and was able to find some better jacking points that way, so it was a lot easier. Now like I said, the fronts were the easiest part. The rear is where it gets a little more complicated, and it's not that it's complicated by pulling out, it's just you do have to have a de-pinning tool to remove the wiring that goes through the strut itself. So once it goes through the strut, you have to de-pin it, and I'll kind of talk about that once we get there. Now you're going to have 4 15mm bolts that are at the top. Now keep in mind, one of them you can't really get to, so you might have to use another ratcheting wrench, 15mm ratcheting wrench, to get to it. The shock mount bolts is 21mm, and the lower control arm bolt, which needs to be removed as well, is a 18mm. The sway bar link as well is a 15mm nut on top and 15mm nut or head on the lower part of the control arm. So like I said, it was actually very easy to get everything disconnected. It wasn't too bad, but just make sure that you do take your time with pulling the wiring and everything else back off. Again, you will have that metal rod that connects to the magnetic sensor, so just make sure you disconnect that when you're lowering the control arm, so you're not damaging the little unit there as well. Once everything, like I said, comes out, the next process becomes a little more of a headache, just because I did not have de-pinning tools. I did not have the right tools. I could not find the correct depinning tools anywhere, so that wasted at least an hour of time just trying to go and get stuff, and I didn't really find a video that was actually talking about this, so I really wanted to actually do this video and kind of talk to you guys about this. Now, we did use a flat blade screwdriver from a small kit. Now, this is from somebody else's kit. They used these particular tools to remove everything. It wasn't hard to do, but I used a cotter pin instead of a paper clip, and I was able to get everything out, but a paper clip probably would have worked a little easier. But again, you're trying to get those wires to be bare just like that, so you can run it through the hole that they have on there. Now, I've ran into some wild forums where people saying, oh, I just cut them out, I didn't care, blah blah blah, and I was just like, really? But like I said, there's something, you know, I don't want to cut wires. I like to keep things looking as factory as possible. But once we got through the end of that, like I said, getting to the spring itself was actually very easy, and I did use an adjustable wrench again, and an 18, I believe it was an 18 millimeter. I'd have to double check on that for you guys, but yeah, it was actually really easy to remove the top. But once, like I said, once you get that wiring done the first time, the second one definitely is a lot easier. Just like I said, don't cut the wires. I know a lot of people, they kind of go and cut the wires, and I just didn't like the idea of cutting the wires. Now, I'm using electrical tape just to kind of push it through the hole, because there's two wires, so making them more of like a one wire was a little easier to kind of easier to put it through the hole without having any issues. Now, I did make a second mistake here. Like I said, the first was not having the correct tools. Second mistake was when I was getting everything put back together, I forgot to run the wire through the hole on the top part of that bracket. So I just started putting the connector on, and I was like, I'm almost done, yes. And there's actually a hole that wire needs to go back through, so make sure that you put it back through that hole, so you don't have to depin it. Like I said, I wasn't worried about breaking the connector, but it does feel very fragile, so I was trying to make sure that I wasn't doing it so many times that you might wear out the plastic parts, and especially using the wrong tools definitely wouldn't have helped. Now, I did, if you notice there, I did start to pull the pin portions back out on top of the connectors themselves, and it was one of those things that, like I said, once you got it all in there and got it locked in, it'll stay in there very, very tight and nice. But again, like I said, as I'm putting this all together, I did not realize I didn't make it through the hole, and so that's when I had to remove everything one more time, and I was, like I said, it just added a little more time to the process. And so once I got it through the hole, boom, there you go. I was kind of home free at that point. But like I said, overall, just make sure that you're tightening everything down tight enough. Make sure that the perches that you're putting them back into are lined up to the spring itself, just so you're not having any random noises or weird noises once you get it all, like I said, all connected and back together. Now, the hard part for me, once you get everything back in, it was a little bit of a pain trying to push down the lower control arm to have it hold back into its home. So with a second person, probably would definitely help kind of pushing things down while you're trying to remove these pieces. But overall, like I said, it actually turned out very nice. I was very happy with how everything worked and looked, and I kind of wish they were red because that would match the BMR suspension, but overall they came in black, and that was okay. But I believe they make red ones as well, so if you want to match red, you can definitely do that too. Now, as we come to the very end of this video, one of the things I did want to talk about, we do have a ton of Camaro videos, 2013 ZL1 Camaro videos, and keep in mind though a lot of the stuff that we're doing will kind of work on many year models, so definitely go check them out at the end of this video. We do have a lot of other projects coming down the line as well, and one of the biggest projects that we're going to be working on is a 69 Charger, as well as a 70 El Camino. And then on Heroes projects, he has a 2005 Infiniti G35, and we'll be doing a lot of work on that one as well. Now we're going to be pitting the El Camino and the G35 against each other. So at some point we're going to take them both to the track, and we're going to see how they line up against each other. You know, new technology versus old. So we're very excited to bring that to you guys. We're giving ourselves about a year to kind of go through both builds. So we're going to start editing the footage of the El Camino. We're doing a lot of rust repair on that vehicle, and we'll kind of showcase that. On the G35, we'll be changing everything to coilovers. So we'll be removing some of the springs and doing a lot of heavy suspension work on there as well. Now, as we come to the end of the video, I do want to showcase pictures, and I do apologize. One of the other videos we put out, we totally forgot to do before and after pictures. So on this particular video at the end here, I'm going to do before and afters. You definitely notice the drop on these springs, even though they're only 1/2 inch and 3/4 inch drops. You definitely notice the drop on these. So here's the first one, and sorry about the color on this, guys. We have been dealing with fire season, so you know, it was very gloomy out. Now as we got to the end here, you could notice how much the drop is and how much it looks. So it definitely looks great. But anyway, YouTube, don't forget to hit that like, subscribe, and definitely comment below. See you later, guys.